Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Nandi. Welcome to my YouTube channel Ecstasy of Physics. In this video, we are going to talk about the circular motions and gravitation's free response questions part 2. Before starting, I would like to request you please go through the part 1. This is a continuation of this previous part. These questions we have got in the year 2002 in AP test. So here it is given a ball attached to a length of string of length L, and the swings in a horizontal circle as shown in the above with a constant speed. So let's consider the speed is equal to v. The string makes an angle theta with the vertical, which is shown in the diagram, and the t is the magnitude of the tensions along the length of the string. Express your answer to the following in terms of the given quantities and the fundamental constants. So on the figure below, draw and label vectors to represent all the forces acting on the ball when it is at the position shown in the diagram. So in these positions, we have to draw the free body diagram. The length of the vectors should be consistent with the relative magnitude of the forces. Now the tension, it would be exerted along these directions, and the object is having the certain amount of, means the ball is having certain amount of mass, so corresponding to that its gravitational force, that is Fg, that is exerted in downward directions. So this is the free body diagram. Draw and label the vectors of all forces. Now for the part B, determine the mass of the ball. Now in that case, the tension, if this angle is theta, if we consider the angle here, if we draw a line which is parallel to the axis of rotation, this one is representing the axis of rotation, through the point, let's say P. Through the point P, if we draw a line which is parallel to the axis of rotation, in that case this angle should be also theta according to alternate angle concept. So here we can say this angle would be theta. Now we can resolve the tensions into two components. One would be along the vertical directions and one would be along the horizontal directions. The vertical directional component, it would be T cosine of theta, since it is making angle theta with the main vector, and the horizontal component is T sine theta. Now at present, in the first one, determine the mass of the ball. So in the part B, along the y-axis, we can define the coordinate system. This is our x-axis, and along the y-axis, that's the vertical axis. Along the y-axis, it is in, since it is in equilibrium condition, so we can say that net force exerted along the y-axis, it is equal to 0, and along the upward directions, this T cosine theta, along the downward directions, that is mg exerted, and that should be equal to 0. And from there you will be getting that T cosine theta, it is equal to mg, and along the x-axis, that T sine theta is exerted, and since it's rotating in circular path, it will be having the tangential velocity at this point, which means there is a force exerted to the radially inward directions, and that force is known as the centripetal force. And at present, this T sine theta, this is the component is going to provide the centripetal force. So here we can say that summation of F along the x-axis, that should be same as the centripetal force Fc, and the net force exerted along the x direction, that is nothing but the T sine theta, means component of tensions along the horizontal direction, that is going to provide the centripetal force. And the expressions of centripetal force, that is m, mass of the ball, times v squared by r. So here just consider this triangle. Consider this triangle. We know that length of the string, that is equal to L. I'm going to draw the triangle once again. We know that length of the string, that is equal to L. We have to find out this would be the R, because this is the circular path it is making. Now in that case, this angle is theta. To determine the value of R with respect to L and theta, we can consider that sine theta, that will be equal to, this is 90 degree, so sine theta, that is equal to R by L, which means we can say that R equal to L sine theta. We can substitute in this equation that m v squared by R. Now at present, this t sine theta, that is equal to m v squared by L sine theta. Now let's do one by one. So first we have to compute the mass of the ball. Mass of the ball m, that would be equal to t cosine theta by g. So at present they have given the tensions in the expressions, magnitude of the tensions along the length of the string, and theta is the angle with respect to the vertical. So that means the mass we can keep in this form, since t and g it is given in the statement. Now in the part C, determine the speed of the ball. To determine the speed of the ball, we have derived other equation. So we can make this v squared equal to t sine theta times by L sine theta upon m, and we can substitute the expressions of m in this equation. T sine square theta into L by m equal to its t cosine theta, and that divided by g. So g will be going to the numerator part, so it becomes cancelled from here. So from here we are getting v square equal to g into L into sine square theta by cosine theta, and we can just write it down as g into L. Let's consider sine theta upon cosine theta into 1 sine theta here. That means it gives g into L into tan theta into sine theta, and that is square root of that would be giving the v, expressions of v. In the next part D, determine the frequency of revolutions of the ball. The frequency of revolutions, we know that frequency means is the number of cycles per unit of time, and that is related with the time period with it's 1 upon t. Time period t, that can be determined by, it is 2 pi by omega, or we can write it down 2 pi. We know that tangential velocity v equal to omega times r. From there we can say that omega equal to its v by r. So if this expression we substitute in the previous form, we'll be getting, instead of omega, that is equal to v by r, and we'll be getting the expressions, it's 2 pi r by v. Now let's put into the equations the v value. So that will be square root of g into L into tan theta into sine theta. So that's the expressions of time period, and that time period if we substitute, means if we take the reciprocal of the time period, square root of g into L into tan theta times by sine theta upon 2 pi r, that is going to give the frequency of revolutions of the ball. This r we cannot keep in the expression, so previously we have determined the value of the r in terms of L sine theta, so that we can substitute in this equation that r equal to L sine theta. We know we are going to substitute here the square root of g into L into tan theta into sine theta upon 2 into pi into L sine theta. Now from there 1 upon 2 pi square root of, this is g. Now L sine theta, if goes inside of the root, it becomes g into L into tan theta into sine theta upon L square sine square theta. Outside of the root, if it is going inside of the root, we may have to make the square. 1 by 2 pi, then 1 L is eliminated and 1 sine theta is eliminated. Tan theta we can write it down as sine theta by cos theta, that means it will be remaining 1 upon cos theta only. So that would be giving the frequency. That's the expressions of the frequency in terms of the given parameters. Okay, in the last part E, suppose that the string breaks as the ball swings in a circular path. Qualitatively describe the trajectory of the ball after the string breaks but before it hits the ground. So let's consider at any point. Let's say at this point the string breaks. So in that case it will be having the tangential velocity along the horizontal direction. So it is supposed to move like this, and from there it is going to follow the parabolic path up to reach to the ground. So this is basically representing the projectile motions at this case. So the motion executed by the particle, executed by the ball, it would be the projectile motions after the string breaks, where it will be having the initial horizontal velocity, it would be v, and up to reaching to the ground it will be path following, that's the parabolic path. Okay, so in these questions the informations we have: a small disk of mass m1 on a frictionless table. First of all, the horizontal table is given that frictionless, that means mu equal to 0. There will be no frictional force exerted on the particle. Now it's attached to a one end string, one end of a string. So it is continuously rotating that m1. It is making some circular motions here on the table, and the string passes through a hole in the table and attached narrow vertical plastic tube. So this one is representing the plastic tube, and through which the string it has passed, and it has connected with the another mass whose mass is m2, which is in hanging condition. Now a student holding the tube makes the disc rotate in a circular motions of constant radius r, while another student measures the period p. So let's figure out what are the forces exerted. So first of all, on the m1 mass there will be a tension exerted along the length of the string. The gravitational force exerted downward directions, that will be m1g, since it is on the table, so the table is going to provide the normal reaction force in the upward direction, that is we can consider as Fn. And for m2 that is it's just in m2 it is in its own locations, it is not moving up and down, so its gravitational force downward m2g, and the tension which is exerted here along the length of the string, so the same tension is being transmitted at this point also, so the tension T would be exerted in the upward directions. Now just think about for the m1 first object, since it is making a rotation of constant radius r, and so here we can say it's a circular motions executed, and it's during a circular motion, so we know there is a force exerted to the radially inward directions, and that force is known as the centripetal force. Now according to Newton's law of motion, that second law of motion, so we can say the net force exerted on the particle, that should be same as the mass time acceleration. So at present the acceleration is nothing but the centripetal acceleration. And what is the net force exerted? Net force exerted along the horizontal direction, that's a tension. This tension is going to provide the centripetal acceleration, centripetal force here. Rest of the forces like the gravitational force downward directions m1g and the normal reactions Fn upward directions, both are balancing each other. And since there is no frictional force, since there is no coefficient of frictions or frictional force effect, so we are not going to consider any frictional force effect along the horizontal direction. So here this T we are getting, that is equal to mac, that is the equations of one from the first object. Now from the second object m2, whose mass is m2, here we can say the tension T, that is equal to m2g, and that will be equation of the second object. And for the first object the mass is m1, so let's make it m1. Now we can equate this too, because the tensions in both the cases it should be same. So from there equating equation number 1 and equation number 2, we can say it's m1 ac that is equal to m2 into g. Now the expressions of acceleration, centripetal acceleration, that is equal to omega square times by radius r, that is equal to m2 into g. Omega represents the angular accelerations, the angular velocity, and r is representing the radius of the circle. Now omega we can represent in terms of time period, that is equal to omega equal to 2 pi by, here they have given that period equal to p, and the relations in between angular velocity and the period is 2 pi by p. So we can substitute in this equation, that is 2 pi by p whole square times by r, that is equal to m2 g. Now let's simplify these equations. m1 2 pi square, that gives the 4 pi square upon p times by r equal to m2 g. Now let's make p as a subject. So p, it becomes, it's m1, it becomes p square here. So p square, it becomes m1 into 4 pi square into r upon m2 into g. Now let's make the square root in both sides. You will be getting square root of the entire part, that is m1 into r by m2 into g into 4 pi square. Now let's keep 4 pi square. If we bring outside of the square root, it gives 2 pi square root of m1 r upon m2 g. So that's the expressions they are asking to derive. So in the next part, the procedure is repeated and the period p is determined for 4 different values of m2. So it's m2 is given and the period p is given, where m1, that is 0.0012 kg and r equal to 0.08. That means these two values are constant, m1 and r, in the expression. The data which are presented below can be computed and experimental g. So their objective of the experiment to find out the value of g, gravitational acceleration. Now the question is, what quantities should be graphed to yield a straight line with a slope that could be used to determine the g? Now let's just look at the section. So in this expression we have the g, it is in this equation. So let's make this equation as p square. P square equal to, it's 4 pi square into m1 into r upon g into 1 by m2. Now at present we have to graph this, the period p and the different values of m2, but the thing is the graph should be so that we'll be getting a straight line, and the slope of the straight line, that would be determining the, that will help to determine the g. That means let's think about the straight line equations. We have the straight line equation, that is equal to y equal to mx plus c. So now along the y-axis, the period, definitely it's the dependent variable and m2 is the independent variable. So along the y-axis, if we can plot directly the p square, and along the x-axis, if we can plot 1 by m2, along the x-axis if we can plot 1 by m2, then the 4 pi square m1 r by g, the expressions what we have, that will be representing equivalent to the slope, and the y-intercept term, that becomes 0 here. So the equation, it becomes p square, that is equal to y, and this one is representing the slope m, and 1 by m2, that is representing the x-axis value. So here the equivalent term is y equal to p square and x equal to 1 upon m2, that the mass, and the slope or the gradient of the equations, that we can represent by small m, that is equal to 4 pi square m1 r upon g. So that's the slope equation. Now from here, first we have this m2, so you can fill the table. You can figure out what is that 1 by m2, and we have the p table, so from there we can determine that what is p square, like 1 by m2. If you fill the table, what you will be getting? So according to the given statement, that what quantity should be graphed to yield a straight line with a slope, that means the quantity should be plotted along the y-axis, that is p square, and along the x-axis, that is 1 by m2. Then only we will be getting the straight line, and after plotting the graph, we will be getting the slope, and that's from that slope we can extract the value of the g from there. So in part C, on the grid below, plot the quantities determined in part B, label the axis, draw the best fit line to the data, and you may use the blank rows above to record any values you may need to calculate. So in the part B, we have determined that along the y-axis we are going to plot the p square, and along the x-axis we are going to plot the 1 by m2. So that data we have to fill, and already we have filled the table, that is 1 by m2 and p square. Now these two values we have to plot in the graph. Corresponding to that, we have to determine the slope. So here it is, draw the best fit line into the data, and so we have drawn the best fit line corresponding to the data what we have achieved in the previous table in the part C, and you may need to use the blank rows. Okay, already we have filled this part, so part C is done. Now let's move on to the part D. Use your graph to calculate the experimental value of g. So earlier in the previous section, we have defined the slope is this one, 4 pi square m1 r by g. So m, that's representing the slope or gradient of the section, that is equal to 4 pi square m1 into r upon g. Now if we can determine the slope from this section, and that slope if we can substitute in this equation, 4 pi square m1 into r by m, where this m is representing the slope. So first we have to determine the slope of these equations, and we have to just plug into these equations to obtain the value of g. And note that this m1 and r value already they have given. This is m1 0.012 and r equal to 0.8. m1 equal to 0.012 kg and r, that is equal to 0.8 meter. So we can substitute in this equation, and 4 pi square is constant, so only we have to find out the slope of this line. Let's consider the 2 point which will be like a known value we can figure out. One point is here, that could be like it is 20 to 24, and this should be 1, and other point we can take that would be passing through any exact point. Let's consider this one. So that is okay, so let's consider this point, that should be 40, and here corresponding to that we'll be getting 1.6. So this point is 41.6, and the other point, that is 24,1. Now if you are going to find out the slope of this section, that is delta y upon delta x. So here we have got the slope, that is equal to 0.0375, and after that this slope if we can substitute in this equation, that 4 into pi square into m1, that is 0.012 times by r, that is 0.8 upon slope, that is 0.0375. If we calculate this, then you will be getting 10.1, so which is nearby of 9.8 meter per second square. However, this is our experimental value. We have got slightly, it got deviated from the main value of the theoretical value of 9.8 meter per second square. So this is the experimentally achieved value.